Welcome to the Romancing Like Swift podcast, where we talk craft and the business of being an author while fangirling over Taylor Swift. We're your hosts, Morgana Bevan
and Emily Jane. On this podcast, we'll discuss what authors can learn from Taylor Swift. There are many amazing Taylor Swift podcasts in existence. We know this, but our focus is on mining Taylor Swift's lyrics and business practices for tips to help our fellow authors excel in their careers.
Today we've got Holly Darling rejoining us to talk about how email creates community with Easter eggs and drip marketing and the things that Taylor does that we can learn those things from. Welcome back to the show, Holly.
Thanks. I never had a repeat performance on any podcast I've been a guest on. I don't think there's another more perfect one to be coming back to. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I was very excited editing your last episode because it was so many months afterwards that my brain had taken in things that you'd said, enacted them, and I didn't realize until I edited the episode that it all came from you. So
yeah, it's great. I'm really excited to have you back. You shared so much great information last time, so I'm really excited.
Thank you.
Yeah. Should we do a quick reminder of who you are for anyone who's joining us completely fresh and somehow have missed you in the industry?
Sure. So I'm Holly Darling. I run a company called Holly Darling HQ, and I specialize in emails for authors. My favorite thing about emails for authors is really talking about automation, segmentation, and storytelling, which is always funny to me how terrified authors are of the storytelling component, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today. I think that no other industry is primed to drip Easter eggs, to build tension, all those things into a newsletter than authors. So I'm happy to get excited to chat about my favorite thing ever, newsletters.
At the end of the last episode, you were saying that you were going to keep an eye on Taylor's emails to see how things progressed. Have there been any developments, or is things pretty much sticking the way they were?
Yeah, no, I get them all. And that's an interesting progression, right? Is where do they land when they come to my inbox? Once it landed in my inbox, and all the rest of the time they land in my promo tab, which was our last time's conversation about what's inside and how does that determine where it lands. But I open them up all the time with excited anticipation to see that something has changed, but nothing really has changed other than subject lines. And then what I think is also happening behind the scenes is a lot of segmentation, although I can't say for sure, based on engagement. Did you click something before? Have you clicked and converted and purchased something? What kind of an email am I getting? And because I have clicked on a few of them and put things in my cart, I've been experiencing various different emails. So I think that's a bit of I gave her like a C the last time. I was saying maybe we're up to a B, but there's still so much storytelling that she does everywhere and all the time. Like her entire public persona is encoded, that I think that her team is just missing such a huge opportunity in email because they're still straight up selling, which is fine because they're clearly getting the results that they want. But could they do some expansions of the stories that she's talking about on social media or on stage? Yeah, I think so.
So next time we're talking to Natalie Knight about e-commerce emails, and it feels like the way you just described that just pinged in my brain, like there's the divide where authors were like, there's the author email and then there's the store email, and they're only doing the store email.
And there should always be both happening, and both should weave themselves into each other. There's definitely in the purchase kind of system, so whether that's abandoned cart, post-purchase, what comes next, it has a definite transactional feel, but you can put a bit of brand voice or drip what's coming in there. And the same can be said for storytelling emails, can have some transactional promotional feel to them, but I think they have two different strategies, and I think they're stuck in one lane for sure.
Yeah. As authors, then, if we focus on the foreshadowing, storytelling stuff, what kind of content do you class as the storytelling?
Storytelling doesn't always necessarily mean the story that you're trying to sell, like the book or whatever. Storytelling to me is the story of your brand. Who are you? How much do you want to drip values and entertainment, but always remembering why. Why is a reader not subscribing to your newsletter, but why is a reader reading you? They're reading you because you're a storyteller, and they're reading you for, if you want to even narrow it down further, is entertainment. So why send out a boring email that is the same every week or the same as every other author that's appearing inside? So there can be storytelling within promotion. It's just kind of remembering who's the end user, what do they want from you, why do they come there? If you're in the romance space, which we all are, they're there for those drips of the reasons why they read romance. So, what tropes are in there? What are the characters they like to fall in love with? But they also, assuming that the readers don't want to know anything about you, which is one of the, I would have top 3 complaints about storytelling. And the biggest one that I hear the most is, I'm boring. Nobody wants to know anything about me.
Can I jump in on this? Because I was sitting here thinking, like, when there's a pause, I'm going to jump in with my question, which is, and the answer might just be get over yourself. But what advice would you give for those of us who suffer from massive imposter syndrome, who feel like, really, you ask the question, why are they there? And I'm like, yeah, why are they here? Who wants a deeper glimpse into my life or me? I'm like the least interesting person ever. So, what kind of advice do you have for people who are struggling with that? There's the quote, and I cannot remember who it's from, that's like, I never want to go to a party that wants me as a guest. And I'm trying to remember who said the quote, and I can't remember who it is, but it's like, if we're suffering from sort of that social anxiety, imposter syndrome stuff, how do we get over that? Or do we just have to power through and be awkward about it and it's okay?
Yes. And people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And in order to get to know somebody, you need to give them something to connect with you on. And it can't just be the product, because people buy products from brands that they now more so than ever that they connect with on a value system. Maybe it's colors, trends, but it all boils down to a connection. You can't create connection with straight up sales and promos and swaps every week. They'll go somewhere else to find that. In another facet of my life, I advise startups on how to start and grow their businesses. And one of my key critical moments is assumptions, and making assumptions about what your customer wants is the kiss of death in your business. You have to ask them. You can't assume that they don't want to know. You're going to find out. And I bet you dollars to donuts that if you put in an email something, a little tidbit that you're comfortable with, personal, whether you have a persona or you're straight up transparent about who you are and your pen name is your real name, whatever it is, you can drip a little piece of who you are and what your brand is about and what you're about into an email, and you will get a better response than you have seen with straight up swaps and promos and here's a book, here's a blurb, here's a link. And I always encourage authors to dive into their own inbox and look at the newsletters that they've subscribed to. And if you don't subscribe to any, start subscribing to a few that are out there and see what it is you like. And why would you open that newsletter over another one? I do the very same thing. This morning, I got a newsletter from Corinne Michaels, who I always open. Technically, I love using her newsletters as an example, but there's a little bit of her woven in, a lot of brand aesthetic. It's just that she spent a ton of time giving them peeks into her life. Lucy Score is another good one, but they're all connecting with their readers at the same time as they're selling to them. And again, if you remember, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. You can't build that trust without giving a little bit of yourself. So get over yourself. Yes. I mean, we write books for a living. That's pretty freaking cool. There's not a lot of people out there, even though it feels like everyone you know does, but it's not true. You write books. I have written books. I did a live class once on storytelling and how I let the audience pick the topic. And it was the most awfulest topic, but I threw it out there because I keep tabs of things that are happening to me. I threw it out there, and it was a day that I went out with some friends on a trip. So I wasn't at home, and I had to use the bathroom urgently, if you can understand what I'm talking about. And we had been having drinks and Mexican, not a great combination. And that was what I decided to write my newsletter on. And I got so many people like, oh my God, that's me too. And when you can weave that story about yourself, which really gives nothing away other than I had a bowel condition, and everybody's been there and done that. And then you merge it with something that you want to sell them. So I merged that story with the very same thing happened to one of my main characters, and she was mortified. And the walls were paper thin, and the main character, could hear it. I'm a rom-com writer, so I mean, to me, that's hilarious. To some people, it'd be like, that's disgusting. But suddenly, those characters are coming more alive through your own experiences, and you're marrying these two stories together, and it sells books and creates brand loyal readers who are just craving for that. I'm not saying every single email, if you can't do that, has to be like that, but the majority of them should be. It doesn't have to be as extensive as that. I have a series in my emails called Holly versus the House. As a single parent, so many of my readers are concerned about my entire life because I've spent so much time talking to them about, I had a mouse in my house. I never wished for a partner more in my life. And I had to fix a toilet seat, and I'm just bringing them along for that ride. I never give my house, my address, the city I live in, all those personal details don't come in, but these are just experiences that connect us.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does. Yeah. I'm making notes on, I have like a little whiteboard thing. So I'm writing down know, like, and trust. And I wrote down the authors you recommended as well, Lucy Score, and was it Corinne Michaels?
Yeah. Those are two good ones. Brighton Walsh, Eva. Oh, shoot, I'm going to forget Eva's name. Eva has a really interesting one. And before we're done here, I'm going to spout out Eva's last name, where all her newsletters are storytelling. And then she gathered them all up into a book that she sold. And she tells these stories. She writes alien romance. So it's all about her daily life and how her mom thinks she's crazy, and how she calls one of the aliens Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa's naked in my bed. All these different hilarious things. And she has a cat, and she tells so many stories that she weaves into the characters and the books that she sells, that she created an entire book, put them all together after a year's worth of doing it. And it's such a smart idea where you can take some of these stories, and it's one thing that I do, especially from a character's point of view storytelling inside emails, and that could weave us back to Taylor, where you take that persona and you take a character and you have them start to tell the story, but it has your brand voice in there, and they're just dripping out information about what's coming. And I like to employ that ahead of a release, so you really get to know the characters. Maybe it's a crazy side character, or maybe it's not, but you're starting to drip the story through the eyes of one of the main characters. And then you can smush all those together if you do 4, and you've got bonus content. You didn't have to do anything. You just wrote some newsletters.
I would rather write bonus content than newsletters. Bonus
What if you
content
write
is
bonus
easier.
content and it is the newsletter? There, you've done the newsletter without really trying.
Yeah.
It makes it easier.
I literally just wrote a newsletter. It went out today that was talking about the raccoons. There's like a raccoon story in my latest release. And I literally was like, yeah, so how I mentioned these raccoons in this book. If you've read it, there's this story there. You might be surprised to know that the raccoons are real. And then I gave them the photo of the raccoons that I experienced in Toronto, and how I told them about how unhappy my friend was that they were there, but how delighted I was to see them because I'd never seen a raccoon before.
Really? I
Yeah.
love raccoons. They are the most
They're
mischievous
hilarious.
little. Yeah.
We don't have them in the UK.
Really?
Yes. So for me, seeing them for the first time was a delight. Wasn't a delight to my friend.
Mm.
I told my readers that. I'm like, the main hero is Canadian. I was like, well, it's the typical Canadian experience as far as I'm concerned. So there's a raccoon story, and his mother wasn't allowed to kill the raccoons because the kids got attached to the raccoons. I'm like, okay, great. So I told the readers about it, and I got emails back from people in Canada with this similar experiences. So it can be really strange things.
I think everyone in North America has a silly raccoon story, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Then you dripped a bit of a story and you did some newsletter and you talked about a common connector. I don't know, just by throwing away those preconceived notions that nobody wants to know anything about you because you're boring, which is just not true. You can kind of create this foundation of connection. I used to work with a psychiatrist who is also a business coach. And he said a lot of he would say the majority, and I would say maybe a lot of the roadblocks that business owners, and each author is their own independent business owner, encounter when being vulnerable in their business stems from, he said it was being at what happened to them at the age of 12, which is 10, 11, 12 formative years where you start to decide what your worth is and your value and how you exist in the world. And it's really interesting to me where I think, am I nervous to put this out there because I don't want to be judged? Which is 9 times out of 10 the answer for everybody writing a newsletter where there is a piece of themselves or storytelling in there. But think about that. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I so apprehensive to fill this with even a paragraph about me? It's the same reason people don't want to write storytelling emails or emails at all, because the unsubscribe terrifies them. Because in their mind, they're saying, somebody's saying, you suck. But that's not it. They're just saying, we're not a good fit and you're not paying for them anymore. And
It feels like middle school rejection all over again.
yes, exactly.
Being told you're
Exactly.
not allowed to sit at that table or whatever.
Yeah. So bravely just throw stuff out there and see what happens. That's every marketing plan in a nutshell. I mean, you could have the best plan, but you have no idea how it's going to land until you actually let it go and see what happens. If you get emails, which you won't, like you just won't, you won't get emails of people saying, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. You're awful. Surprisingly, that just doesn't happen. It's too much work for somebody, but you get the majority of people going, oh my God, I have a raccoon story too. Or, oh my God, I'm a single mom too. Or, oh my God, I'm excited to read this book. I probably get 5 to 10 of them a week. And I don't even write emails for myself. I get them for my clients. When I work with my clients, I'm like grilling them, tell me something that happened to you this week. Make sure you write that down. Make sure you send it to me. Let's look at what's ahead, what's coming. And this is where we weave it back to Taylor, like what's coming. And she's such an expert at what's coming so far in advance and just slowly dripping that little words or visuals or whatever it is, hints about it. Why can't we do the same thing? And it builds her fans up into a frenzy, and where they're making predictions, and 9 times out of 10 they don't come true. That when they don't, they're like, move on to the next one. And yeah, we're probably not going to get the same level, but we are going to get a version of that. If you start selling a release, the release is going to happen. You're going to be frustrated with newsletters because it just doesn't work. There's technical stuff that's not working, but at the core of it, you're not building that anticipation. It's not like, I'm going to do a cover drop, I'm going to do this. What if it's like, here's the cover, find the one thing inside this cover that represents the main male character or the female character, or that I love looking at covers while I'm reading a book to see where the Easter eggs in that cover, that I now understand why the cover was designed this way. So you just make a game out of it and you make it fun, because remembering back to why they're there to be entertained, they're there to have fun, and they're there to remove themselves from the daily reality of what it is that they have. So why not have some fun with your newsletter?
Before writing this raccoon newsletter, I hadn't thought to use the instances of my own life that I'd filtered into books. And my first couple of books I did, and then I ran out. And now my brain is going, but there's other stuff. We could start strategically feeding them into the book so we can write these newsletters.
That's how I work now. I write the book for the newsletter. I'm like, I make notes. I'm like, make sure this comes into a newsletter and this and this and this, because it's happened to me. Usually when you're writing, there's always a piece of you living inside of that, right? And if you can just take note of it, if you train your brain to pay attention to that, and like, oh, this is going to be a good story for the newsletter. That's exactly how Taylor Swift moves through her whole life. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And every song she sings has a piece of her inside of it too. And then she just dives into that and then creates this chaos where she really hasn't said much of anything at all. Where people are like, oh, I think that's Joe, or I think that's about so and so, and that's about Travis. And oh my God, this means that she's engaged and whatever. And you can do the same thing as you're writing your books. You're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to use this and this as the marketing points because I know my audience and I know that they're going to eat that up.
Well, that was my first takeaway from this episode. I guess that kind of leads us into the idea of using newsletter to develop relationship between the characters and the readers as well as us. Where would you send authors from that? We're kind of taking there as an outlook of we should be, one, look at your own life for instances to use for storytelling, but then also think about things from the book that actually could tie in. We could do these things through character POV. We could do that quite well. And email does allow then for that personal relationship to be developed between the two. But is there more steps we could take to be highlighting the foreshadowing? Because this is a problem I have. I love Easter eggs. I love writing Easter eggs into my books, but I'm not at the point yet where my readers have spotted them. Like 10 years down the line, I'm going to be ecstatic when a reader is crowing that they found this connection between two characters that was really vague, but they're not doing that yet. So is there a point at which we should be highlighting it to make them aware that they're they?
Yeah, you have to teach them. You have to teach them how to experience your experience. When Taylor Swift first came on the scene, this wasn't a thing. Like her Easter eggs weren't a thing. She made it aware that eventually she made her audience aware that she was handing out Easter eggs and they needed to pay attention. I like to gamify things like that, or you can use polls and surveys. I use polls like this is where segmentation can really help you. So who's read the book, who hasn't, and you get them to kind of self-select. If you haven't read the book, you better read the book because over here, these guys are playing a fun game of find the black cat or whatever. I don't know what it is. They're just, you want to play that game because I'm giving away an exclusive chapter or whatever. I don't know what it is you're giving away, but it doesn't have to be monetary. It could just be something. VIP newsletters content or something like that. That again, I don't think you need to you're using all of this with a strategy in mind. Like, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to keep it. Anytime I'm making an effort in marketing, I'm going to make sure that effort can be duplicated. But you do have to teach them what you want them to do. And they may be playing the game and not even realizing it, which is the best part of it, where you do a click here or tell me your favorite trope, tell me your favorite whatever. And you're like, okay. And then what I love doing on a trope survey for romance readers is I don't give them a lot of options. I give them the options that I want them to have because I know I have a book coming that has those, say, 2 tropes or even 1.
It's like when you're dealing with small children and you're like, do you want to clean up your room now or do you want to clean up your room in 10 minutes? And both options are totally okay with you, but you've given them the illusion of choice. So if I don't write scary hardcore mafia books, I'm not going to give that as an option. I'm not going to be like, do you like reverse age gap? Do you like He Falls First? Do you like rom-coms? Do you like intense mafia books? Not going to do that.
No, nothing I ever do, nothing Taylor Swift ever does is without intention. So you have to do the same. If you're asking them questions, you have to know you have an answer that you can serve them with that benefits you. And so, no, don't throw out all the tropes in the world out there. Throw out the ones that are consistently appearing in your books, and specifically the ones that are going to appear in the next book you want to sell them.
Is that something we could be doing at the end of each email? Like not making the entire email about that poll, but maybe including a poll at the end of every email that's like, so this week, what's your favorite kind of hero? Next week, what's your favorite subgenre of romance? What's your favorite trope? Like changing it each week in the build up to a release and then going, but guess then like emailing, as you say, segmenting. So we're tagging these people every time they click the tropes that we want them to click. And that those people being the first ones to be notified when a new book is coming.
Exactly. For example, I have a client that I write for, and she had a book. She's in the middle of a trilogy release. And so we've done 1 and 2. And prior to 2, it focuses around a local pub. And we've been doing polls, open ended questions inside the polls, all of these things with complete intention. And tell us your best pub story. Do you like pubs? Yes or no? Have you been to one? Do you have a local pub that everyone knows your name or whatever? Just these questions on every single email in the 8 weeks leading up to the release. And we're in a new cycle for the next one. And we're right in that. And we're still with pubs. We're also with camping because camping is one of the things that happens to them. It's not necessarily always tropes. It's something about the story. And we're just dripping the themes that are coming to them so that they're like, and then what we don't do is just have a poll up and walk away. We have the back end set up to track their answer and sometimes serve them something, a little automation that they don't even know they're inside of. So it bounces them over, or in MailerLite, if you use that, you can bounce them ahead to a different question only for the people that answered this. What's the name of your favorite pub? And we got so many replies. And they're like, this is my favorite pub. And then I went off and researched them. And then you could drip those into the automation. All these people segmented, got into. We heard back from so many people. Here's our like top, here's my, and it's mine, not I'm some ghostwriting this for someone, but here are my 3 favorite pubs that we saw, or here are my favorite stories that we heard from you when we asked for hilarious pub stories. We're dripping the release, but it's inside of connections, storytelling, and data collection, and then serving with intention.
That's given a whole new meaning to preparing for launches.
Oh, yeah. Launch preparation is my favorite thing, but it makes people cry and run away because I'm like, give me 12 weeks and we'll get you an amazing launch. They're like, I don't have 12 weeks. But the cool thing is, if you can set this time aside, like even for like 2 to 8 weeks, be like maybe doable somewhere in there with intention, but it's not just straight pre-order, cover, blurb, link. Everybody sees that. There's a hardcore few that are going to do it, but you have to have gotten them chomping at the bit to like get the story. And in order to do that, you have to lead them down a path, but it's duplicatable. So you set the system up once. I run my launches through an automation. I do not write emails for it anymore. It lives in an automation. I duplicate it, release automation for this book, change the details, but the structure is the same. I got poll, segmentation happening all in the same way. It's just titled something different. I don't have to think about it. I have the delays set. I can have everything is set. The after effect, the same thing goes on after. You're storytelling the success measures or what happened to you after, pictures of you at a launch. I don't know. I had one client where we shared tons of pictures of her. The same pub client and camping client has pictures of her in every week. And I know not everybody can do that, and they tie right back to the conversation. She's in her RV having a glass of wine at a local pub, and we're just tying it all together so that people are just invested in this journey.
You've just given me my November tasks, basically. I'm writing my January book now for the first time since 2022. I'm back to being ahead of schedule, and I'm going to use that to my benefit.
Yeah, all it is teaching yourself. I'm terribly organized, terrible. And what I have to do is teach myself systems that are easy for me. Like I have an assistant that has a system she loves. It's not for me. Her brain is organized and she loves it. I'm like, you know what? I got my notes file and that's about all I can handle. But your brain starts to just remember to be looking for things the more you tell it to look for things. And in order to remember, you have to usually write it down or type it out or something like that. So now for me, as I go through my day, I'm like, oh, let's make a fun newsletter story. But I didn't always act that way. Or as I'm writing a book, I'm like, this would be a fun thing for the newsletter. Or I'm going to pull this scene out and expand it in a bonus piece. Or take this deleted scene that I thought was really cool. My editor said it was terrible. I'm taking it and running through my newsletter, whatever. But the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit. And then you start to think ahead and it feels a lot less overwhelming.
Right now, I feel like I do that with just posting things on social media, but there's no reason not to do those little life stories that come up. There's no reason not to just do those in the newsletter instead.
Or both.
Or in
like they can
addition.
feed each other. Why do the work multiple times? If you like socials, you find socials are easy and you like it and you enjoy it, if you plan it out, but you hate writing newsletters, well, just take your social schedule and make it into a newsletter and just expand it a little bit and just start to experiment with it. But also, I have one client who is busy. Like everybody's busy, but she's busy, busy, triplets, full time job, part time writer, loves email, but hates spending time writing email. Her emails every week are 1 to 2 paragraphs long. The end. Always has a link, occasionally has an image for that, but everybody knows what she's up to. It's like, oh my God, the triplets are driving me crazy. I just got King's book out. Here it is. And away she goes. And that's it. She's like, it's easy. And people love it because so they're busy too. Her audience are busy people. She's a busy person. She's a lawyer. She writes legal romance type thing. And it works. The vibe is there. But at the same time, it's not overwhelming for her. I don't think there are any rules in newsletters. So if you have a social post that goes viral, it's gone viral for a reason. Take that virality and put it in your newsletter and write something similar or stretch it out. But it can be 2, 3 paragraphs long and you're out.
Just to bring us back to something you said earlier, like about rewarding fans, the attentive readers, what can we do to reward them? And then what, like, guys, so I have this out there idea that doesn't really tie into newsletters, but I'm going to do pins for readers who have read 5, 10, 20 of my books. I'm going to get pins made and my assistant will ship them out. And I'm going to somehow fulfill this with, they have to be on my newsletter because that's the way they're going to get the form to tell me how many books they've read. And that's my reward thing for becoming a superfan kind of thing. But that's very tangible and there's a lot more digital stuff we can do and not so costly.
I have been thinking about this a lot this week for many reasons. But yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. So I'm going to try to condense it into a quick summary. If you want to circle back to Taylor, the first thought on it is it doesn't necessarily have to be a thing. It could be the same thing, but with a special cover. And it has a timed piece to it. Click this. It's available now. I have one client who does that, and she has superfan covers with intention. She doesn't print a huge quantity because it's expensive, but she's an author that lives in that space where she can budget for that. And then she only has those books available at signings. So it's a reward for coming to see her at signings, for being a super fan. And it's kind of same as Taylor, like where she has a countdown. It's like, if you're like a super fan, you can click this and get this special album cover or this piece of merch or whatever, and then it's gone. So that's a reward that doesn't fit the traditional sense of the reward. But I think it's an interesting thing, like to reward somebody for being engaged with you, they get something special. It's again something to think about as you're writing your books. What can I write that I can hold for people that are the super fans? And you only get that. Now, I'm a ConvertKit user. You're a ConvertKit user. I'm not sure about you, Emily.
I use Flowdesk.
Flowdesk. Okay, so this you can't do with Flowdesk. You can, but it doesn't integrate with your system. I've used Sparkloop in the past for reward delivery. You have to be on the pro plan, but I think it's worth it if you intentionally figure out how to make it work. So you can create reader rewards with Sparkloop and you give it levels, but it's with the intention of growing your newsletter base. And it's based on they're rewarded, not based on purchases, but based on shares. And you can tell it that, like, that's what you get. Say, if this person shares my newsletter 5 times, they get this. And Sparkloop keeps track of it. And at the bottom of all of your emails to that person has liquid tag that tells them how close they are to getting their reward, how many times they've shared. It personalizes the entire experience. And I have this set up for my author space, but my author publishing thing has been down for the year. When it comes back in 2025, it's going hard. In this space where I'm in it right now, it's coming in the next 3 months. And it'll be something fun. And it's for newsletter growth. And it doesn't cost me anything. I'm just writing a few extra things. So maybe you give it deleted scenes, you give it a base reward. And the more they share, eventually, if they shared it 100 times, they would get your pin, or they would get something that costs you some money to ship or whatever. But the other cool thing is that Sparkloop takes care of all of that, especially the digital delivery. They'll deliver it to people under the ConvertKit label. So it's coming from your email address. It's fully white labeled and integrated, but it's really an interesting reward system that works kind of like a coffee card. And you set the levels, and you can have 100 levels or 2 levels. It doesn't matter. You can make it super easy, which I think share it once, you get something. And maybe it's artwork, or maybe it's a bookmark or whatever. And maybe it's like a bonus story. And that just slowly kind of organically builds as you are out and about talking to people. You sell that on socials, like join my newsletter, you get rewards. I have a rewards program, like a reader rewards, and nobody really cares what the rewards are. At that point, they're going to investigate it. And then you have to have the value in the reward piece that is important to them. But that's, again, asking them what would be interesting to you. Why not use your newsletter as well to mine data, see what they actually want to be rewarded with? You could use a poll, a survey, or just get them to reply whenever, or you see what gets engaged on. But why not ask them what they want to be rewarded?
Yeah, I love that. And as I was already starting to think about the loyalty schemes for my direct store, and I'm trying to find a tool to do that for the direct store. And that's more transactional. Get a discount, get a free book or whatever, free shipping when you hit a certain level. But I love the idea of it being for the author newsletter, because I do think I'm going to continue with keeping them separate, just because it doesn't feel like there's space in the store newsletter. There's stuff I want to talk about in the author newsletter that I would not talk about in the store newsletter. It just doesn't cross over. So I would always want to keep the two. So having that ability to keep growing it through shares, that's something I hadn't thought about. I'm very excited to go look at that.
Yeah, it looks complicated, and you can use Sparkloop on its own. So you don't have to have ConvertKit to use it. But what ConvertKit Pro gives you is they pay for the Sparkloop, and you don't have to pay extra to use it. So I did some cost analysis, and I find it's worth it, because the other thing I use it for are recommendations. So as more authors come to the ConvertKit community, one of their big focuses is, and this isn't going to be a ConvertKit ad, so I will just touch on it briefly, is having authors meet other authors, like grow their network of authors and recommending each other. Sparkloop can do paid recommendations. So it's something I'm also experimenting with. BookBub is a paid recommendation. So if you join, it's not with my newsletter list because it doesn't make sense for this side of my version. But if you joined an author's list and you put your name and your email, what ConvertKit will do will say, this author, hey, are you on BookBub? You can get some great deals. And then they can join BookBub. Well, what BookBub is a paid recommender via Sparkloop. So you get $7 every time somebody joins the list. I know, Morgana, you know all about this, but can you do some sort of recommending circle, or instead of having swaps, something like that? This just is a slower, more organic, more vetted group of people that you can start sharing your list with. And when somebody's recommending you, they know when you're recommending them. Then you can build these collaborative kind of spaces. I think there's just so much in newsletters that hasn't been explored by authors that other industries are already doing. I love the idea of collaborative newsletters where, I'm obsessed right now with Post Malone and Post Malone's collaborative album, on how there's only a handful of songs on there that he wrote and performs on his own. And one of them is with Taylor Swift, which kind of launched me into being obsessed with him. So it's like, oh, now I'm obsessed with him and I've downloaded all his songs or whatever. So there was this collaboration, and then the split apart. And we were talking about rewards, but I've gotten completely sidetracked about using newsletters in a way that hasn't been used before, instead of just going into these big round robins or these big swaps. That storytelling just isn't happening. But what if you tell the story of two brands that come together that are feeding the same audience with a completely different product, but has the same theme that lives there? It doesn't work as well for like cross genres and things like that, but it works really well with, say, a sports romance and a rom-com. They kind of have the same reader, or I don't know. I think it's really fascinating how newsletters are not being used by authors and by authors that are a friend network. I have a lot of author friends just by the nature of hanging out with them all the time and working for them. But I'm like, hey, whenever I suggest a collaboration, they're like, never even thought of that. This is great. How will we do that? I'm like, let's do it through newsletters. Then you can stretch it to socials and your storytelling, even though you don't feel like you are, you're rewarding people with a unique kind of story, a unique perspective from somebody else, and maybe an inside baseball view of how their favorite author and this favorite author come together. I don't know. So there's so much that isn't being done. Sorry for the sidetrack piece, but I think musicians, are really great at this. I come from the music world. I am a musician. I went to college for music business. I worked for Sony Nashville and Sony Canada, and I spent a lot of time in collaborative rooms where artists were writing together or performing together. And I think it's something that just is happening. Authors are writing together, but they're not writing together all the time. They're writing as one pen name or they're writing together as a very vocal collaboration. But are they using their newsletters or are they accessing their superfans? And are they bringing their superfans together, their fandoms together, and then telling the story of their collaboration other than just, hey, here's a cover, here's a blurb, I worked with this author, away you go. I think that there's some fun, interesting things that authors just need to bravely step off and see what happens.
Well, and I was going to jump in and say that just because of the nature of friendship, even if you and whoever your best writer friend is write very different things, the fact that you are friends means there is probably some overlap in your interest or your styles or your view of the world or that kind of thing. There is overlap there. So even if you don't write the same thing, you can sort of find that overlap in why you are friends with this person and then mine that area for the content. My longtime best friend, writer friend, for example, for a long time, I wrote contemporary, she wrote historical. I'm more politically liberal, she was more politically conservative. But there's this core of our personalities that the overlap is we both believe in the redemptive power of love. We both believe in found family being core to our experience, that kind of thing. So you can write vastly different things, but you still have this core story that you are exploring in different ways. The collaboration can come out of that. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I have two author friends, Eva Delaney. So I told you I would come back with Eva's last name. And there it is. Eva Delaney and Mia Mead. And they both live in Toronto. And we all met at a TRW, so a Toronto Romance Writers Conference. And they hit it off. Mia writes paranormal and Eva writes alien romance, amongst other things, but that's her main kind of gig. They started collaborating on a independent newsletter. They talked about each other in their own newsletters and then collaborated not on a book, but on one single newsletter brand. And now that brand doesn't exist anymore, but they appear in each other's newsletters personally. So Mia had a baby and Eva calls it Mini Mortal. So, oh, Mini Mortal's here. I'm going to go see her. And they would have pictures of her and they would just cross paths probably once every other month inside of each other's newsletters. And it's this fun piece where if you know one, you know the other. And they don't really write the same thing, but they do have that paranormal piece in there. And you're along for the ride and you feel like you're part of the third part of the friendship. Like when I go out to lunch with them, I'm like, I've only done it once, but I'm like, these two are hilarious, but that doesn't change in their newsletters and their friendship shines through. And people, again, buy from people they know, like, and trust. And if they have a friend coming in, well, somebody else trusts this person and they seem to like each other and they're fun. It's like you're inviting them into their world as a friend temporarily or for however long. So I think it's a really fun idea that not a ton of authors that I've worked with explore. Like takeovers used to be a thing on Facebook, but could they be a thing on newsletters? For sure. Can they be on socials? Yes. And I have a few authors that I work for that do a ton of stuff either on YouTube or on Instagram Lives with their author friends. And it's just a traditional marketing strategy, to bring two forces together. But at the same time, I think it tells a deeper story about who this author is, who are their friends.
Straight away, I think of Melanie Harlow and Corin Michaels. because obviously their characters overlap and their friends in real life, and their readers know that. And they do appear in each other's newsletters. What I've started doing is exclusive takeovers of my newsletter. So majorly I've done it with friends. So Paula Dombrowiak and Gia Stevens have taken over my newsletters. And what we do is it's not a dump a blurb, dump a cover, this book is live. It's, hey, my friend Morgana has handed a newsletter over to me. Here's a bit about me. This is why I'm excited for you to read this new book I've got releasing. Here's what it's about. And here's an excerpt. It's more personal leading into the sell, whereas a lot of authors, like I've tried to do the exclusive swaps and they'll just give me blurbs. It's not the point.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. People want to know more about you, whether you like it or not. And you can give them as much or as little as you're comfortable with. But when you pull a friend in, it gives them a little shift from the monotony, but also be a piece of who you are and see something new to enjoy. And then if they like that, they're back. That trust piece is like fast forwarded again. Like, oh, okay, I trust this person. It's like your favorite book talkers, whether you like book talkers or not. But I have a few that I would trust only because every recommendation they've given is exactly what I'm looking for. And there's only 3 of them, and I would read anything they gave me. And I've seen them collaborate together. They've appeared at conferences together, whatever. And it's super fun to me. And so I'm like, oh my God, you can do the same thing with newsletters. You can have fun. You can bring friends in. You can have guest appearances. And it doesn't have to be, it could be a long game plan too, where, yeah. And I love the Melanie Harlow Corinne story where even characters start appearing or they have the same small town. I've seen a couple authors do that where they're writing in the same town, but actually that used to be wildly popular, but it wasn't run in the same way, like where somebody would create a world and everybody would, and it still happens, but it's just not my jam. But it's just this little dip into that world sometimes. And those are those Easter eggs that you can slowly build up, right?
I did it to Paula Dombrowiak. I was writing my 4th actor romance and I needed a book that they were going to convert into their first film. And I picked her newest release. And so it's just literally just a name drop and a book drop. And I told her it was there. And now in one of her books, she's written some of my characters. One of the Irish guy, I think she wrote my Irish character into her latest book as well. There's a tie over starting with us, but it's like tiny things. It's not massive. And then you say it's noticeable, but her readers, if they pick up that book, they're instantly going to know that that was for her. And then my readers picking up her books are going to recognize that. So it's like little things.
Which goes back to what we always say about Taylor, which is that people love to be in the know. People love to feel like they have secret knowledge.
To just wrap you back to the ConvertKit recommendation engine, I have actually disconnected myself from their recommendations because I kept having ghost subscribers. They'd go nowhere. When I actually looked at it, it was a lot of authors that had subscribed, not readers, which makes sense where the recommendations come from because there's authors recommending each other. And basically, I just end up a lot of authors just sitting on my newsletter, not in the usual groups. They don't get sent into an automation. They just get dumped there and they do nothing with them. I didn't dig into it enough to figure out if there's a way to integrate the recommendation engine into an automation. I feel like it's untapped, definitely, because I have no idea what to do with it in the sense of getting readers through it, because authors, great. Like, it's nice to have some support there, but you don't want a newsletter that's just full of authors.
Agreed. I have it turned on, and what I find is if I don't nurture it, it's not doing much for me, but I am getting a decent number of recommendations each week from it. So I turn people on, turn people off, I test them, but you need to have them go right into an automation to test them all on their own in a very unique way. And then they can launch over to the main one if they pass the test. I have no problem launching them right back out of the newsletter if not a good fit. The other thing that I do is it's not all authors. So what I like is BookBub is a good one. So, hey, you want to get discounted books? I recommend you follow BookBub. And then there's this happiness newsletter. It matches the vibe of my writing. There's one author, a service, and then a parallel vibe check. And then there is a specific sequence, one email long, it's introducing them, but it's also giving them an unsubscribe. And I'm saying all of this, I'm in the process of rebuilding it because I launched a new advanced course and it forced me to kind of get my act together and show people how to do it. And so mine was a mess too. It was like, oh, this is not working. No wonder it's not working. It's got weird people in there that don't make any sense with my people. And of course, they're going to come in and go out. But yeah, I think though there's untapped opportunity there. And the more Kit, I think today they officially launched themselves as Kit. They're no longer ConvertKit, but it'll be hard to get to that point. They are putting a lot of their eggs in that basket in the collaborative build your network with us space. And because the owner of that is an author, and I've had some conversations with him and his team, they will get it right. But right now, they're just figuring it out. There's tons of room for it to grow and get better. And I don't think right now it's giving authors a ton of results, but it is trickling. So it's coming.
So basically what I'm hearing is I need to go pre-order your new advanced course.
Oh no, it's open. It opened yesterday.
Right,
So
okay.
anymore.
And that's where the time has gone on me.
I think if you get it in another month when ConvertKit relaunches and has some new features that should be coming, and I've tested some of the other things, that will be the sweet spot for my advanced course where there'll be lots in there that's juicy.
Okay, so for those of us who are not advanced, I was going to say, do you have a less advanced course? What services do you offer across the range?
Yeah, the majority of what I do is actually working for authors. So, like, I'm a big fan of outsourcing. And if you can budget it in, you can hand the reins over to me, or you can have me just build an automation, or you can have me build segments. I've done that before too. Like, I don't understand segmentation. Can you build me segments and tie them into an automation? So, custom services is most of what I do. But I do have one generic course that's like emails for authors, and it's basic level. You don't have to be an expert. And hopefully by the time you leave, you feel proficient. And it has some templates in there. And it has some new stuff coming next week too. So it'll be exciting. I do have 2 platform specific courses, which are the 2 that I find are the most used by authors, which is ConvertKit. As we've heard, I've got just regular old ConvertKit for authors, which is entry level, and then advanced ConvertKit. And then I have MailerLite, which is a beast of a thing because it has how to use classic, how to use new, and how to do all things in between. But I find that there's no way I can shortcut that version of it. And then I have some little mini courses that are topic specific. So how to segment, how to serve your warm clients in an automation, how to serve your cold clients in an automation, what's deliverability, how to get more deliverable, and subject lines, how to write a subject line and how to test them. That's all on my website.
Do we feel like we've covered everything you wanted to cover for this topic?
I mean, I think I have, but if you guys need me to talk more.
Don't have any more questions. I think we're good. Emily?
Yes, I think we're good.
Perfect. Then, yeah, let's wrap it up with our song of the week. Which song are you obsessing over?
Oh.
From Taylor's catalog.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. You've listened to Torch Poets Department, haven't you?
Yes.
We can do Kiss, Marry, Kill.
Ah, yes.
Okay, so Kiss, Marry, Kill. We started doing this when the album first dropped. You pick a song that you would kiss, a song you would marry, and a song you just would kill off. It doesn't have to be forever. It's just how you feel right now. That song's just no go for you. So think about that while I open up the album to remind myself.
Okay.
Okay, I've got mine. I got my list ready.
Oh, go on then.
Okay, so Morgana, this is the day you have been waiting for. I'm going to do my Mary first.
Okay.
I am finally ready to commit to loving Florida.
Oh my God.
Yep. For a long time, that was my go-to kill song. I was like, I just don't like it. It bugs me. It's annoying. I mean, some of it was for personal reasons. I'm not going to lie. But I've decided I love it. It is really good, Morgana. You were right all along.
What made you change your mind?
I think it just wore me down. Like it just relentlessly, it is a good song, and I had to finally admit it, and I had to finally just be like, okay, yeah, it's really good. Annoying, but it is a really good song.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so that's my Mary. I'm going to say that my kiss is So Long London. I've just been enjoying that one. And then my kill is going to be fresh out of the slammer. That one has been annoying me lately. So that's my kiss, marry, kill.
Okay. Holly?
That's so hard. It's such a good album, right? Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would kiss Florida too. I've always loved that song from the first time I listened to it. But I'd marry Who's Afraid of Little Me. And then I would kill the smallest man who ever lived. I think it's more for content than the song itself. I don't know. It just gets so angry when I listen to it. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's me.
Okay. I think right now I would kiss Down Bad just because we took back that Easter egg thing. I really love how she turned up the VMAs in a Down Bad dress and then changed into another Down Bad dress. Just love that. My marry is going to be Fortnite, which I am shocked about. Like when I first listened to the album, I didn't like Fortnite. It didn't stand out to me. And now I don't know. I've watched that music video so many times and watched how Post Malone just that look, that like in love look that he just
Yeah.
nails.
He gives good eyes.
Yeah. And then my kill, this one's always hard. It's gonna be Loss of My Life. Lommel. Yeah, I think that's, I don't even have an explanation for it. It's just got a sad melancholy of it. It's just too much for me right now.
Yeah. That's the lovely thing about Kiss, Marry, Kill is the list isn't permanent.
Yeah.
It's just what's your vibe right now. Yeah.
But the funny thing is, we've done this so many times. I don't generally know what I've said in previous episodes.
Yeah. I just know that generally I've probably killed Florida more than the others.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
It is
Yeah.
good. Yes.
Have you watched her Florence and the Machine turning up in London? Have you watched the lives?
No.
Florence Welsh? Yeah, I think that's right. She turned up in London. She was on stage in London for Florida.
Oh,
It was the
okay. I've seen everybody but her. Oh, that's good. I'm going to go for that.
I think it was the first time she played it live, and everybody's like, no, she's in Florida. She played it in London, in Florence's hometown. And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was amazing. Watching the two of them skip down the catwalk, it was just perfect.
I'm going to go look for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, I think that is us for this episode. As ever, we could probably talk to Hartley for another like 3 hours on email, but we'll give you a break. Chloe, do you want to remind everybody where they can find you? I'll pop links in the show notes again.
Sure. If you just look for Holly Darling HQ, I am in all the places. So online, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those places you can find me.
Fantastic.
And when is this coming out? This comes out after Author Nation, so you might have grabbed a Romancing Like Swift ribbon that we still need to order. But yeah, if you met us, it was nice to see you, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.